So let's dive into something really fascinating. What happens when a massive disaster warning goes out, everyone does what they're supposed to do, they prepare for the absolute worst, and then basically nothing happens. It just fizzles. And this right here creates a really dangerous paradox that emergency officials have to deal with all the time.
And that's the big question, isn't it? It was at the center of a huge conversation in Hawaii after a recent tsunami alert. You know, the whole state goes on high alert, and then the waves end up being way smaller than the worst-case models predicted. And hey, that's fantastic news, obviously, but it immediately starts this debate about something called alarm fatigue.
And look, this person wasn't alone. A lot of people felt the whole thing was just a huge overreaction. But this feeling, this nothing burger idea, gets right to the heart of the problem. If people feel like all their effort was a waste of time this time, are they going to hesitate the next time a warning goes out? And what could that hesitation end up costing?
To really get why people were so frustrated, you have to put yourself in their shoes. For a lot of them, this wasn't just some small inconvenience.
I mean, just picture it. The second that warning hits, it's pretty much chaos. People are trying to get out of the coastal zones, which means hours and hours of gridlocked traffic. Life just stops. Jobs get canceled, flights are grounded. You've got families trying desperately to get in touch with each other. People spending 6, maybe even 10 hours just waiting in a shelter or stuck in a park. And then the all clear is given. After all of that, you can kind of see why so many people felt like it was all for nothing. Okay, so that's the frustration. But now let's flip the script and look at why the warning went out in the first place. Because officials weren't just guessing here. They were looking at initial data that was, frankly, terrifying.
The whole thing kicked off because of a massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake off the coast of Russia. Now, to give you some context, that is huge. We're talking about one of the most powerful types of earthquakes there is, and it's the exact kind that's known to create these incredibly dangerous ocean-wide tsunamis.
So what happens in an earthquake like this is you have one of those giant tectonic plates that literally shoves itself under another one. When that happens, it can violently push up a huge column of water. It's like punching the ocean from the seafloor. And that sends out these powerful waves that travel across the ocean at the speed of a jet. So based on that initial 8.8 number, the science said that huge parts of Hawaii's coastline could be in real danger.
So when you get data like that, you know the clock is ticking. You have to act, and you have to act fast. The first warning went out at 4:10 p.m. Evacuation started almost right away. And by 6:15 p.m., a full hour before the first waves were even supposed to get there, they had cleared out the most dangerous coastal areas. They set up 180 checkpoints to get thousands of people to safety. I mean, from a pure process standpoint, the system worked exactly like it was designed to.
And this brings us right back to the central conflict. On one hand, you've got the very real frustration and inconvenience of what feels like a false alarm. But on the other hand, you have the awful, painful memories of what can happen when a tsunami is real and the warnings aren't there or they aren't listened to.
You can really see the two sides of the coin here. For every person talking about the traffic or sitting on a cold gym floor, there's another person bringing up the tragic fires in Lahaina, where a lack of warning was just catastrophic. They remember the big tsunamis that devastated towns like Hilo, or they bring up the deadliest one of all.
250,000 people. That's a staggering number. And that's the estimated number of lives lost in the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. A huge reason for that catastrophic loss of life was that the Indian Ocean just didn't have the kind of advanced warning system that the Pacific has. So many of those deaths could have been prevented if a warning had just been possible.
This comment really just says it all, doesn't it? The choice is pretty stark. The hassle of a nothing burger is a very, very small price to pay to make sure that the system is ready and working when it truly matters.
And this all leads to a really crucial idea. What if we've been looking at these fizzles, these so-called false alarms, completely the wrong way? What if it's not a failure of the system at all, but actually a key part of making it stronger?
This isn't just a random thought either. International disaster preparedness experts like UNESCO, they actually recommend that we totally reframe how we think about these events. Stop calling it a false alarm. Call it what it really is, a live, full-scale, real-world drill. Because when you start seeing it as a test,
everything changes. It's not a false alarm anymore. It becomes this priceless opportunity. It's a chance to find all the cracks in the system before it's a life or death situation. You get to see where your planning is weak, where you don't have enough resources, and you get to stress test all your communication gear. It's the ultimate dress rehearsal.
And this is that exact mindset in action. The moment the warning was downgraded, officials didn't just breathe a sigh of relief. No, they immediately started planning an after-action review. They wanted to break down the entire response to find those critical areas where they could do better next time.
So think about this. All those things that people were, rightfully complaining about, the nightmare traffic, the confusion, families not being able to connect, from a preparedness point of view, those aren't failures. They are priceless lessons. That data on traffic jams is absolutely critical for planning smarter, faster evacuation routes for the day it really, really counts.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the big picture system, but let's bring it back down to the personal level. Because one of the biggest lessons from any kind of emergency drill is finding out just how prepared or maybe unprepared we are as individuals.
So what can you do? Well, the official advice is pretty straightforward. It breaks down into 4 key steps that every family should take before an emergency happens. Get an emergency kit together. They say you should have 14 days of supplies. Make a communication plan for your family. Pick a physical place to meet up. And know your escape routes from your home cold. And that kit, your go bag, that is probably the single most important piece of the puzzle. And it's not just for tsunamis, right? It's for any emergency. Just think about it. What would you need if you had to leave your house right now? Water, food, a radio that doesn't need to be plugged in, a flashlight, some cash, and copies of your important papers. Having that bag ready to grab can make all the difference in the world.
And this quote really sums up the most positive thing that can come out of a nothing burger event. For so many people, it was a real wake-up call. It's one thing to read about being prepared, but it's totally different to actually live through the stress of an evacuation and realize, wow, I don't have what I need. This event got so many people to finally get their plans and their kits sorted out.
So let's end on that thought. There is going to be another warning. And yeah, it might be another one that fizzles out. But the question we all have to ask ourselves is, how are we going to see it? Is it just going to be another frustrating inconvenience, a waste of time? Or are we going to see it as a rehearsal, a priceless practice run that makes us all safer for the day that it isn't?